is that statute that you have to do it, because you know, when you go to town meeting and hear all the binders crack open there, you can assume that a lot of people that get them don't read them. And I'm wondering if we could print a quarter as many or half as many and save that amount and then just have it on the website. Why does every town meeting member get and could they not opt in? You know, we put
used
down phone numbers and emails for town meeting members. Electronic copy of the report with your email or or a hard copy.
Yeah, that's a really good question. They used to have, I think it was 9,600 or 9,700 copies. We used to send it out to every household. And then a few years ago, the decision was made to put it up on the website electronically and just send it to town meeting members. I don't know if it's a statutory requirement or not that it has to go to town meeting members. I'll follow up and see if it is, and if it's not, that's probably a discussion that could be had by the Board of Selectmen.
Well, it may be that there's a minimum print run too, of, you know, a couple hundred copies or 300, and, you know, that might have been a factor.
Tell you, it is nice when you're doing research projects, to read some of those old annual reports. They really are.
I mean, they haven't all been digitized.
Yeah, we still have bookcases with them, and if you go over to the library, they have them.
I have 40 years worth if you want to read any of them.
But they are a great resource.
Yeah, they are.
They really are. When you have to look back, when you're working on a project, you need to look back to find out something.
Yeah, the old warrants are fun to read too. Or, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say fun, they're informative. At any rate. So, Selectmen's E&R would be the next budget. It's election and registration.
This is the part of the election and registration that falls under the Board of Selectmen's jurisdiction. By statute, the Board of Selectmen appoint the poll workers.
Darnell.
Yeah, and we spoke about this basically about taking the selectmen E&R and putting it under the line item of elections in the clerk's office, and make that just so that everything, again, just condensing and putting everything apples with apples and stuff. And this is one of those things, I think if you put apples with apples and leave it there, clerk handles all this anyway. She deals with them, or clerk will deal with them. And this here actually can go away.
One less budget.
One less budget to have to deal with.
You won't hear any argument from me on that suggestion.
Because it just, to me, it just makes more sense
No, I
to
agree.
have all election information in one place. And town clerk is one who officiates those elections.
And I have had a conversation with the town clerk office, and she would be in favor of putting the two together so that we have a true apples to apples comparison on what elections cost.
So, what's to prevent us from doing that? Because I know this
For
comes
this
up
year,
every year.
I would want to go back to my board of selectmen and make sure that they're comfortable with doing that.
I mean, it would be, these costs would end up under the town clerk's control, budget. And the town clerk is an elective office, different from the Board of Selectmen. Is that the sticking point, do you suppose?
I don't know the history of why it's been separate for as many years as it has been. But I think it makes sense to put it all into one budget, even maybe if you put it all into one budget with both the town clerk and the Board of Selectmen signing it. You know, the town clerk can present it to the Board of Selectmen and they can both sign it.
Because over the last couple of years, the town clerk has rationalized that her budget in terms of election costs, so that she pulled all of her election costs out of other categories of expense and and so those lines could be read easily, and they're based on the number of elections.
Mhm.
And it makes it much easier for anybody looking at the budgets to see what's going on. And this functions the same way, but it's sort of another piece, and
Mhm.
you know, why we need it is
Right.
a mystery. But at any rate, does anybody have any questions on this? It's pretty much a bill. We don't consider this controllable in any way.
Excuse me, will this
Steve.
bump up next year or the year after with the extended polling time? You know, that 10 days of voting? Because
Yeah, it's coming up.
Susan was talking about some increases, but I don't know if this reflects that or not.
That would be, in the clerk's
In the
office,
clerk's
though, wouldn't it?
office.
Clerk office.
Strictly.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
You don't need to have.
This budget just, like I said, is for,
Poll workers.
it's the poll workers, it's the DPW workers that take the equipment and set it up at the polling locations. It's to rent the trucks because the polling equipment now is voice activated. So in prior years, they used to be able to put them in open air trucks, but now they have to have, when they're transporting the equipment, they have to have rider rental closed trucks in case of rain. This is an advertising because the Board of Selectmen have to advertise the closing of the warrant. It's the printing of the warrants, it's the postage to mail the warrants. So that's really what this budget entails, which support the election and registration. But as Phil said, that increase is in the town clerk's budget.
Paul?
Steve, I have in my notes that Susan said that would kick in fiscal year 17, the early voting stuff.
So, yeah, I mean, this does include the cost of the warrants,
Mhm.
this budget, and maybe that's why it's separate from the town clerk's office, but maybe the warrant could just be added to the selectmen's budget.
Well, I think you'd want to keep it in this budget because
Just leave it there.
it really relates. I think that, you know, we work well together, and I don't see any reason why we couldn't work together on compiling this budget going forward. I myself personally think it should be one budget, because then you have all the historic information in one location going forward, so.
So we can work toward that.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Super. Okay, we are,
Warrants used to be in the warrant.
unless there's other questions,
I have one.
Lee, Michael, please.
I have a question for Amy, possibly on free cash, or do you not want to get into that right now?
Can we do it after we do unemployment and veterans?
Yes, I thought
Okay.
you were moving on, done.
No, we have two more budgets.
Okay.
And I'd like to get through those,
Yep.
and then.
I meant to ask at the end. I thought
Okay.
you were summing up.
No.
Okay.
I wish. Next budget is unemployment. And again, this is kind of a bill. It's $100,000. And so Amy's narrative is excellent, and it includes the detail on the actual expenditures in the past. And shows that our $100,000 looks like a pretty good target. And, hope it holds up. Is it holding up?
So far for fiscal 16, I don't.
15.
Yeah,
This
I'm
year.
for 15, yes. And usually the majority of the claims tend to come in the summer, early fall, because of the teachers. I don't think I'm gonna be turning back a lot. I think it's gonna be pretty close to the 100, maybe a little over, a little under. But nothing like, a few years back where it was significantly over.
Yeah, 2010 and 11 were,
That's when they
Large.
extended the benefits, I believe. When unemployment benefits were
Benefit kept
extended.
extended.
Yeah.
And then after that ended, it started to trail back, fall
Come
back.
back to normal.
any thoughts on this subject?
I think we're good.
Okay, we have one last budget for tonight's contemplation. It's the veterans budget.
Veterans budget,
And
yeah.
how is Mr. Cunningham? Is he?
I'm happy to report that Mr. Cunningham is back at work
Oh, he is.
after being out on a medical leave, yes. However, that being said, he is working out of the Randolph office because he has limited abilities on driving at this point, but he still handles the town of Milton 2 days a week. All of his clients go to the Randolph office and meet with him there. All of his phone here is forwarded over to the Randolph office.
This is probably the only example I know of for sort of regionalization of town services. Is that maybe right? At any rate, Michael, you're going to tell us about this budget if there's anything we need to know.
Sure, no. Again, this was put together at the time without consultation with the veteran agent. So, I utilized this past budgets. Again, benefits fluctuate, can fluctuate year to year. For example, unfortunately, we had this past fiscal year 2 veterans one who passed away, one who moved out of our service area. However, we did sign up 2 new ones who moved in. So, you never know what will happen as they fluctuate.
And when Michael Cunningham was active, he was, part of his job is to find veterans employment.
Absolutely.
And if he's successful doing that, then they drop off the cash benefits. So, can you tell us, I forget, 75% of this is reimbursed
That's correct, for the
from
state.
the feds through the state,
Mhm.
Correct.
but it's a year trailing.
It's trails.
Right.
So, and it's, of the cash benefit portion of the budget. So, anyway, last year we saw that it was trending down, and so we cut the budget substantially by $40,000, and it looked like we were right on the money. So we'll see where it goes this year. But I don't.
Where's it tracking for now, Mike?
Do we know?
I don't have that date. I can certainly pull that for you, though.
Okay, that'd be good. The first 2 years I was on the committee, it was always a reserve fund transfer to cover the increasing benefits that were being paid out, because the budget was, $7,000. It was totally inadequate. So that budget was beefed up substantially, and then as soon as that happened, the demand on the cash benefit portion of it tailed right off. So, but anyway. Any questions on this? Steve, did you have
Not
one?
on this one.
Okay, all right. So great, so we have finished the budgets we were going to discuss tonight, and the next item on the agenda is a catch-all item for discussing the budget in general. So I would imagine that you don't mind sticking around for few minutes. We might have some, apparently there are some questions for you. So I guess I would say, gee, we haven't met in a week and a half, 2 weeks. And the last time we met was on the 21st. That was the same night that the selectmen had a meeting. And after a bit of discussion, I gather, endorsed one of the scenarios that we mapped out and that we thought would be something we could get behind if there was no move toward an override by the elected committees. So, and that was, I don't know, the notorious scenario E, which uses a chunk of free cash. And is that sufficient introduction for your question?
Yes.
Michael? Good. There you go.
So with regard to that conversation, Amy, I've heard several people say that it would be difficult to make the case for an override in the year that we're talking about because we're sitting on so much free cash. And my understanding from reading just one report from the Department of Revenue is that a prudent amount of free cash for a town to have is between 3 and 5% of their annual budget. And if that is an accurate statement, then I think we're at the minimum threshold for where we would want our free cash to be. And I was wondering if you could just clarify on that understanding and correct me if I'm wrong, because I think that maybe we're not sitting on a lot of free cash. I think we might be sitting on the minimum that's expected of us to sit on.
I'm not familiar. I briefly read what you're referring to, but I didn't have time to sit there and digest it.
Mhm.
I didn't really understand that excerpt 100% that was sent to me, because it's my understanding you don't budget for free cash, so I don't know why they're saying it should be 3 to 5%.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have to look into that more. The town historically has presented a balanced budget, which means your revenue equals your expenditures. You're not budgeting for free cash. So that whole page was kind of confusing to me.
Okay.
So I'd have to spend some more time on it before I could really comment to it.
Great.
That's
I
fair
look
enough.
forward to the comment.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, no?
and,
Oh, sorry.
no,
That was a
Deal.
DOR recommendation.
yeah, that's, I'll read it further, but yeah.
No, but my question is to piggyback what Michaels has just said. Is this 1% of a 1% of $100 million budget is really not a conservative estimate when you're budgeting. I don't think at any place, and that's all we're talking about. And when they say when they're saying like, 2 to 4%, whatever the number was, they're saying like, that's just good fiscal policy. You're not trying to stretch. That's all they're saying. When I read that and when we look at that, all I see them saying is that you're not trying to stretch for every penny. You're not overestimating your revenues and your ability to pay your bills. So you're estimating like anybody else would estimate. I'm going to be bringing in X amount of dollars. I'm going to spend X amount of dollars. And I want to have some cushion. And I think, Amy, when we look at some of the numbers you pull together, you do that almost by rote. You give yourself that
Right.
cushion. And so to have free cash come back as $1 million or, $1.2 million, we're not really sitting on anything. It's just speaking to a conservative principle in budgeting. And to not do other things, not do the overrides, not do these things, because we're practicing good fiscal policies and estimates, to me, does not go hand in hand. You do the override because we're doing good fiscal policies, and you use that money that we have to take care of things that free cash or one-time monies are used to handling. We aren't doing that right now. We are not taking care of our streets like we should be. We're not offering services to other parts of the town like we should be. We're not doing things to keep the town, what I say, as neighborly as we could be, because we're spending that free cash on operational things. So when we say like, oh, we're not ready to do an override because of whatever reason, because we have this 1.2 million, what we need to do is do a better job of explaining to the populace here in the town that this is what we call is one-time money. It's non-recurring money. We don't know if this is going to be back next year. So to put it in a budget to pay somebody a salary, to put it in a budget of recurring costs is not good fiscal policy. And that's what the problem is when we tell people like, oh, we got this $1.2 million or whatever in free cash, let's use it and forego the override and not increase our operational spending or not do these things. That's not good fiscal policy, because at some point we're gonna crash. And Amy, you only can pull so many rabbits out of the hat. and you've been doing a great job. And Emery, y'all been doing a great job of trying to be conservative on your estimates. But again, what we're doing with the money that you're saving us is not good fiscal policy. And I think that's the problem when we look at it that way. And I think that's part of what I think Lee Michaels is talking about.
And I'd be interested to hear your reaction to that, what you think is a good use of that one-time money.
I honestly am not going to comment on that because this plan is a collective plan of many parties, and to put me on the spot about that.
No. I'm not trying to put you on the
I'm not
spot.
gonna
I'm not saying
go there.
put you on the spot. What I'm just saying is, I'm just want to bring it out to the town and to everybody else is that we're doing good things here. We're making good decisions here, but good decisions in the budgeting process is one thing, but when you reap benefits from those good decisions, you can do bad things with them. And I think we're doing bad things by turning savings or found money into operational money, which we cannot guarantee year to year. And that's a problem. And that's going to be a problem going forward.
To clarify, I wasn't asking you to weigh in on what the decision of the Board of Selectmen was, but as our town accountant, what is your understanding of what a prudent use of one-time monies is? Are they supposed to be used when you have them for reoccurring items or budgeted items, or are they supposed to be used for unexpected costs?
Well, if I might,
Sure.
that's the debate. The debate is all about, how do you get to a balanced budget and delivery of an acceptable level of service to the town? Because I think those are our two responsibilities. We have to deliver a balanced budget, and I'd like to think that we're doing our best to deliver an even level service, to the town from year to year. That isn't, doesn't suffer from a great deal of volatility. When you have a situation like ours, and you do have a lot of free cash, on the one hand, that's a blessing. It is indicative of, as Darnell was putting it, I think, good financial practice by, our professionals, and that's great. And so we reap the benefits. The Department of Revenue likes that because it shows that you're budgeting conservatively, and they think that's great. They don't tell you what you can do with it. So then you get into a situation where if you say, okay, we should put all this into the roads, which there'll never be enough money for the roads, but if you put it into capital projects, then you are also delivering a budget that is most likely cutting services, okay? If you happen to be at the year where an override would be indicated. We're at that year. An override probably is indicated. That's the conclusion we arrived at earlier. But because we have 2.9 million in free cash, some of which we can use legitimately, you know, well, all of which I think we could use legitimately, but, you know, that's different categories. There are some items in the budget, sick pay buybacks, the 9-year revaluation costs, things like that, that are natural for using one-time cash. There are school materials that are natural for using one-time monies. You can put, you can use one-time money for which I'm proposing to do, for 200,000 worth of fiscal year 13 and 14 wage set-asides, because that's surely a one-time thing, because we're not going to see fiscal year 13 twice again. So I just think, you know, if we think our responsibility is to deliver not only a balanced budget, but one that guarantees some sort of, you know, acceptable level of service, and we're at the juncture where an override would be required to get there, is it responsible to say, no, we're gonna take this free cash and put it into capital projects and go for an override? Because if that override fails, then you will certainly be cutting those jobs, because you have to deliver a balanced budget. So that's you know, that, I don't know. So if the political appetite isn't there for an override from the, you know, the school committee and the board of selectmen and people they talk to, like me, although I've been thinking an override would be a nice idea. And if the consensus is that it wouldn't fly, then maybe that's the responsible thing to do. Otherwise, you are introducing volatility right away to the level of service you're giving back to the town. And it just is difficult, you know, when we get to drive around on plowed streets. That's what good government does for us. If you don't fund that and you say, oh, we're going to have to cut the DPW of some positions, next time it snows, maybe you got a problem. So it's a balancing act. And I know that, you know, people feel strongly about it one way or the other, but bottom line in my mind is I think you have to deliver a responsible level of continuing service to the town, instead of giving them the hard choice between, you know, cuts or an override. If there's a way of smoothing it out, why not? So the consensus was, yes, maybe this isn't a great idea to forego the good things that could be bought with the free cash, but we will certainly go for an override next year. Who knows what the free cash situation will be like.
And that's one of the reasons why I brought it up, because there was unexpected free cash last year. There's unexpected free cash this year. It's possible, people are saying it's unlikely, but it's possible there'll be unexpected free cash next year. And if that situation happens again, we'll be sitting on who knows how much money, and I wonder if the appetite for an override will still not be there, and if we'll fall into a pattern of doing something that we might not supposed to be doing.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't think you can fall into a pattern unless the free cash expanded. The free cash would have to go up as you started using it in order to continue that pattern, because essentially we're digging a $1 million
Borrowing
hole.
against, right.
Or 1.2.
Right.
And so the free cash would have to be 1.2 greater,
right?
Not just consistent,
yep,
in order to continue down that particular path. And I think the idea is regardless of where the free cash is, to try and educate people that it's really not usable. And probably we ought to institute a policy of not using it, but policies are tough.
Yep.
I mean,
Can I just add one thing?
Sure.
I think
please.
the important part of the plan, if it goes forward, as it's been discussed, is that you have a strategic plan for the next year. And without that, that's a different story. But you need to have a plan on how you're gonna make up for it, or how not necessarily replenish it all. I mean, but you need to have a plan, and that's why we're putting forward this 2-year plan. That's a really important part. If we're just using it and saying we'll worry about it when 17 gets here,
Right.
and I think everybody in the discussions said, if it fails, we are looking at serious cuts, and
But
maybe
we'd be
this is
looking
just
at
delaying them a
those
year.
sooner or later anyway.
Right.
So,
So,
But it's
Alright.
not like we do this every year. I think the town has great
Maybe we should do it
sound
every year,
planning.
you
No,
know?
but as Amy said, it's a 2-year strategic plan that everybody
Right.
is embracing, and we don't use free cash every year. We budget conservatively, and we have a record of sound planning in the town, and so I think that, we're using this strategy to get through 16 with the idea that we all have to go out, we all have to educate, and we have to really fight for the override in 17, and, with the understanding that if that override doesn't happen, as Amy said, there's serious cuts on all departments.
Steve?
Well, the 2-year plan is better than a 1-year plan, but it's still an intermediate and not a long-term plan, which is something that has been, apparently cooking around for a while, but we still haven't seen it. And long-range planning is definitely something that the DOR said that we should be looking at. So, I would still, I'm speaking for myself, but I know there's other folks on this committee that have had the same thought, that, we want to see what that is, so that there is, less of this herky-jerk and more of a, let's look out there and figure out what we're going to need to do and how we're going to address the capital and stuff. Even this year, it feels like the snow budget is going to get, and probably the pothole budget too. So where's that money going to come from? And that's money that if you don't have the cash for it this year, it's going to come out of next year's budget. So it's a perfect instrument for use of free cash. And, so if we under budget for that, or if we spend all the free cash before we know what that's going to be, we could put ourselves in a tough spot. The other area that I wanted to get into a little bit is that, this committee makes decisions on where the money should go, and consistently looks to the policymakers and the elected policymakers to give us direction on which of the I'm losing my job,
Priorities,
Yeah,
you're
priorities,
always talking
thank
about
you,
priorities.
priorities. Which priorities are the ones that they want to, and you represent the selectmen, and I hope you'll take the message back to them that, to have
Katie's right here.
a number of, I see Katie too, but Katie's one of 3, and I don't want to put it all on Katie. But the selectmen oversee the second largest group of employees and programs, and so for them to approve all of the budgets with some increases and then just say, you guys who aren't policy people, you sort that out, that's putting on this group the responsibility to develop policy and say that we think that an extra firefighter is more important than some other, hiring or something that's under the selectmen's care. And those should come into us. Here's everything we need, and we've looked at it all, and we're not just passing through all the approved budgets. We've decided that we think investments in these areas should be the priorities, and if that means that for this year, because we're not gonna be able to do everything we wanna do, that you gotta trim it someplace else, that should happen. Instead, the things come in, the budgets come in, and we just get to sort them out. And, that's not, that's policy level decision, and this is not an elected body, and it's an uncomfortable spot to be in.
Well, let me comment first to the 5-year financial plan. The Board of Selectmen did charge me with creating a 5-year financial plan. I had a working group of the town accountant and the assistant superintendent for business. That plan was developed and we were ready to go with it in October. The school committee wanted us to hold off on presenting that until they had a chance to talk about a 5-year financial plan that they wanted to have incorporated into our model. So we waited for that. That happened a couple of weeks ago. We updated our model. We, since October, have now got the fiscal 16 budget, so we also updated fiscal 16 real-time numbers. And I have sent out an email with 3 possible dates to present the 5-year financial forecast. And we're having trouble getting a date. I'm hoping by the end of the week to have a common date for the Board of Selectmen, the school committee, and the Warrant committee to present the 5-year financial forecast. With respect to the second question, the Board of Selectmen did ask me to take a look at the departments under the Board of Selectmen's jurisdiction, talk to the department heads, and ask them where they felt they could make cuts in their budget for fiscal year 16. I'm in the process of doing that now. We'll have revised numbers for the selectmen.
So, in terms of, Anne Marie is looking at each department with the Board of Selectmen and the department heads to determine what they can cut from the request.
Mm-hmm.
We generally take the position of, okay, we have a certain amount, perhaps a certain amount of money, what can we build up above contractual obligations? And we'll certainly look and see what their priorities are and see what we think about them. So, Darnell?
Can I ask you to, when you do your 5-year presentation, that you invite other boards that are not under the selectmen or the school, so that they are advised of what this 5-year vision is,
Mm-hmm.
because we do not want to be accused of not including
Mm-hmm.
other departments throughout the town and leaving them out, because they are very important to us.
Yes,
well.
I was asked to do that as well. So
Thank
once
you.
I get the common date, a notification will go out to other boards and committees, yes.
Anybody have any further questions about our immediate budget situation or our goals for this year? I mean, we are going to finish meeting with the rest of the budgets. As I'll send out an update on where we stand. There are a few numbers have changed. I do have a number now from Blue Hills. It is provisional. A couple of other numbers have changed, but they're fairly minor. We will need to look at what we can do on a very limited basis above contractual. There will be some things we can maybe get into tomorrow. Electricity, I think, has been underestimated across the board. So I think maybe there's a $30,000 problem there we have to address. I think the snow and ice is going to be a problem. But in addition to listening to the rest of the budgets and considering the new articles, we actually have to put the budget together. And in order to do that, we will need to determine what money is above contractual we might want to allocate to any of the budgets we're looking at, and what to do with the balance of free cash that is not gone to support the general budget, because there will be a bunch of that left, and of course everybody has an idea of what we ought to be doing with it, whether it's a list of priorities from the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, And I don't know if you want to give us a first cut at that now, Amy, or if you just want to email it and I'll circulate it.
I'd like to
that
wait
would
till
be fine.
Monday. We have
Okay.
another meeting scheduled, and I think the list may be revised.
You can
so-
come back anytime, and we're not ready for that.
And I also
Anyway.
haven't shared it with the Board of Selectmen yet, so I didn't want to give it to one committee and not the board. so-
Fine.
That's assuming you meet on Monday.
I know.
Right. Maybe I should post for Tuesday and Wednesday also.
Right, well, we are posted for tomorrow, which may be difficult. We are posted for Monday, which also may be difficult.
Monday's questionable right now.
Uh,
Tomorrow
Yeah,
probably fine.
Monday's.
I-
Ted, I do want to also mention that the Board of Selectmen, at their last meeting, did vote to put a ballot question, so we will be having an override this April for the Pickens
Oh,
medical-
right, thank you for bringing that up.
firefighter, injured firefighter medical bills.
Right, which is what frees up some of the free cash that otherwise would have to go to paying that bill in fiscal year 16. So that, may allow us to shovel the snow. I think that's probably about it. So yeah. Any other questions? I really want to thank you, Anne Marie and Amy and Michael for coming in tonight, and thank you, Katie.
I'm just here to support them.
Yeah.
We are going to do this all over again tomorrow, and talk about deferred maintenance with consolidated facilities.
Mhm.
So,
And weather permitting, I will be back on Monday evening with the Council on Aging Director
oh, great,
for her budget.
Okay.
thanks.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Grand. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous, thank you, Julia.
Questions? You know the warrant?